If you have an unquenchable thirst to crush your bucket list, relentlessly pursue your dreams, and live life on your own terms, then turn up the volume and tune in. You're now listening to Zeph and Moses Blacksburg on the Year of Purpose podcast.
This episode of the Year of Purpose is brought to you by our brand new book, Life Rescripted. Find your purpose and design your dream life before the curtains close. If you want to be the first in line to receive a free digital copy from me, all you have to do is head on over to www.liferescriptedbook.com to find out more. Hey there, everyone. This is Zeph in Blacksburg, back with another episode of the Year of Purpose podcast. And today I'm joined by Paula Gosney. And Paula has smashed herself against the walls of life so often, yet still came out on top and lived to tell the tale. Hundreds of hours working one-on-one with others has taught her the only thing that prevents us from the life that we want is our belief in ourselves. She believes that we can build that belief and develop our sense of self so that we know exactly who we are and what we are capable of. And I took this little piece off of our website. It says, celebrate our broken bits. Look at our life's experiences and cherish it all. It is our broken bits that make us so special. And I have the special honor today to welcome you to the show. What's going on, Paula?
Hi there. Great to be here. Thank you. Gosh, that smashing myself against the walls of life sounds so graphic. I remember when I wrote it, it was like, yes, that's true. And then when you hear it, it's like, wow.
It makes it very real. I mean, that's something when I've heard people introduce me, I'm like, wow, did I do all those things?
Yeah, it is. It is. And, I really did smash myself. I spent a good decade just trying to destroy this body of mine as effectively as I could. I look back now and I think about, how I treated myself, and I'm horrified. But it was part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things we could probably both agree on now is that, you can be, while it might not have been the greatest experience, and obviously it was a detrimental experience, I think we could both look back at everything we've had happen to us and be grateful that it did happen because it got us to where we are now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm curious to kind of dive into your story a little bit, and then we'll go into, where you are now and what you've learned. So I was hoping maybe you could take us back, 10 years or so and let us know about where you were in life and how things were going for you. And then we'll go into, how you got out of that.
Sure. These two stories that run together. And in fact, if you knew me in one of the stories, you'd just about find the other one hard to believe, and vice versa, because I had this incredible thirst for self-harm, but also this burning desire for success and love and happiness. And so I was brought up on a farm in New Zealand, and I had a lovely farm life. I was sent off to boarding school very young. It was just what happened. So I was sent off to boarding school at 11. I never lived at home again from there. So I learned to look after myself very quickly. When I was a teenager, I was raped, and I didn't actually have any words for it then. I never told a single soul. I just, from that moment, started to hold on to a deep, deep level of shame, which, as I said, I didn't really have words for, but it was kind of like this other part of me was just then, from that moment on, set about sabotaging everything I was trying to do. And so there was this energetic, passionate young woman heading out into the world, and then there was kind of this other part of me that was just cutting myself off at the knees the whole time. And so on the successful side of that is within, I was a trainee money broker in one of the largest dealing rooms in New Zealand at a very young age, the only woman in the room with 30 other guys. I went on to set up my first business when I was 20 years old, which was a bicycle couriering company in Wellington. So here am I, a little 20-year-old. I loved riding bikes, so I set up this couriering firm. It cost me $5,000 to set it up, and I sold it a year later to my largest competitor for an awfully large sum of money.
Wow.
And so here am I, 21, cashed up, and going, okay, what do I do now? and I was drinking like crazy. While this was all happening, I was really becoming quite a proficient alcoholic, I would say, at a very young age. But managing to keep both these parts of my life going. I moved to Sydney, and again, this balancing act was just being maintained. I set up another business there, a very successful marketing company. I worked for a lot of blue chip companies. I gained a huge amount of experience in sales and marketing. Yet the other side of me was also escalating the damage I was doing. I progressed to hard drugs. I was looking for the baddest and the meanest and the most damaging thing I could do to myself, because I had this level of self-hate inside me, which wasn't just born out of the rape. It was also then the things I kept doing to myself because of that. And I didn't know how to heal it. I didn't have the words. Everything I turned to, I now look back and realize was actually just compounding my misery. I call it the old counselling model. I was with counsellors. I would wake up in hospital beds after overdosing and forced into counselling. I was constantly trying to find a solution to this pain. But the old counselling model, I believe, is totally broken, because you spend all your time reliving your past hurts. Yeah. And all that does is give them more energy and more life.
And I have to agree with that, because I went through quite a huge struggle myself as a teenager. And I will never forget, I probably went through about 5 or 6 therapists before I landed on one that I was even willing to trust, because the first 4 or 5 they were trying to get something out of me. One of them tried to, give me something to draw or color with while I was there, because it would distract me, and they thought it would get it out of me that way. And so I completely agree that, a lot of the old forms of counseling where they're trying to pull this story out of you, when really that's not the way to help you to move on, because you can't move on if you keep reliving it. But I have to ask this question that came up.
Can I just ask you, do you remember at the end of those counseling sessions, you would feel exhausted and drained?
Absolutely. I would go right back to bed.
Yeah. You didn't feel hopeful and like, okay, where are my tools? Where is my toolbox? It was just this feeling of exhaustion and like, oh my gosh, I've gone back here. I'm right back here.
And that's on top of the medication that is, tiring you out. And, they were giving me tranquilizers and things that didn't fix the problem, right? It's kind of like, have you ever seen a screaming kid who, scraped up their knee, and you put a Band-Aid on it, and all of a sudden, like, they stop crying because, it's better, but there's this whole healing process that still has to happen for a longer course of time. It wasn't just this 10-second, hey, here, it's covered up, it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So something that came up for me while we were talking about that was that we're seeing a lot more of this. And just take, for example, Robin Williams, the famous actor and comedian. He was depressed for a very long time, had his own struggles with I think, perhaps alcohol, if not drugs. But how was it that he had become, this super successful person, yet inside everything is still broken? That's what I'm curious to understand from you, and just see where your perspective is on this. Is how is it that he was able and you were able to kind of push yourself to do something very successful when there was no backbone to it, there was no foundation there to support that?
So I think there is, when you have that dual, that battling, the demon, the good and the bad, or the desire to live and the desire to die, or whatever it is, I think there is still a very strong life force in there, which often propels that creativity, or that desire for recognition or love, or whatever those things are. But I do also know that in the world that I lived in for a good decade, I had a lot of very broken people around me who did not have the love of their parents the way I did. That's a whole nother story in myself, but my mother was extraordinary through a time which now as a mother, I look back and I just go, oh my gosh, my mother knew I was a heroin addict. And, when I first told her, she freaked out and really didn't know what to do. And I remember very clearly the phone call saying to Mum, I said, Mum, I'm in trouble and you can't, you can't walk away from me now. I need you. I can't, and she went away and I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. And then she picked up the phone, and I'll probably cry telling you this. I just about do every time, but she picked up the phone and she had spent that 2 weeks going to heroin clinics and finding out what it was all about. And, rather than so that she could be there, I was in Sydney, she was in New Zealand, and she could be on the end of the phone and not judge me and not
I think that really
make me disappear.
To her character.
And so I do believe in those very, very dark days.
To have someone kind
there
of,
was the
stop
sense
talking
that
to you
I
for
was
that
loved
2 weeks, but
and I wasn't being
sometimes
judged.
we don't realize
that
what
really
they're
is
doing
what
with
got
that
me
time,
through.
And so to guess right off the bat that she didn't want to be there for you, imagine how that would have gone, because she wanted to be there for you 110%.
She needed to learn how to be that person, and so she went and got help, and that was the greatest gift she could have ever given me. And there were times where I literally was choosing life over death in a very it was a bit, I call it the dark days. It was about a 2-year period where I really was going either way. And it was her. It was the light of her that kept me through those times. And I often have friends now who came up to me, and they've got teenage children and their children are struggling, and they know a little bit about my background, and they say, what do we do, Paula? What do we do? And I just say, love them. That's it.
And I think the mistake is that we're
love
so
them
used
sick,
to
love them addicted,
some complicated
love them
solution,
broken,
some
because
answer
that's
that
what they need to
requires
feel.
25 steps.
And it's not I love
to
you
get to where
if you give
wanna
up. I love you
when
if.
sometimes the
It's
answer
just
is much
love
simpler
them.
than that. It's very interesting to hear that, and I really liked what you said, that underneath everything going on, underneath all of the pain and the hurt and the self-disrespect and everything that people do to themselves when they're hurting, is actually someone who's fighting probably more than ever.
You are just so on the money with that. And it was a dear friend of mine that said to me years later, after I was clean and, I got my life together and I really wasn't battling any longer. And I talked to her and I said, I feel like I lost 10 years, and I did. And she said, Paula, what you've gained and who you've become, and that you did this, you went through that and you survived and you got clean and you did all that, and celebrate that. And there's just been an incredible collection of the right people around me through that whole journey who have said those fundamental things, which have all been part of building that picture. And in a crazy way, that is actually everything that belief school is. So everything that we haven't talked about that yet, but it is all of that learning, and learning how to access all of those things that I wanted to then give.
So share
I
with
wanted
me
to
how
create
you
something that I could give to my
arrived at
16-year-old
belief
self,
school,
or give to
because
that 24-year-old
I'm sure
person,
there
or that
was something
35-year-old
happened in
mum
your
who
life.
is
I know
just
that you've
lost.
had, numerous
And
businesses
how
and
do they
other
build
roles,
that
and
love
this
and
is
that
your
belief in
current role. And so I'm
themselves?
just curious, what was it that ultimately started Belief School for you, and where did you realize that this was the best way to go?
It is such a, this is such an incredible time in my life. I've done a lot of crazy and exciting and successful and not so successful things, but I have never felt so alive and passionate about. I feel everything I went through from that young teenager and all of that actually brought me to this moment. And when I moved back to New Zealand and I got married and I had my 2 beautiful boys, and I really physically healed my body, my head, my heart, and my soul as I as I call it. I built my third business, which is a very successful company business where I distribute health products. And part of that was I had to develop a sales team, and I started coaching people. I had to start sales training and all of these kind of things. And what I realized is it didn't matter whatever anyone's background was, whether they were very confident, whether they had a fabulous degree, whether they came, whatever was going on for them, the only thing that mattered was their belief in themselves. Everything else was teachable. And so I would have people come into my world, and so I started training on this, and I started speaking on it, and more people were asking me to help them with this. And it was astonishing. I had to start working out, well, how do I build someone's belief? How do I actually start to show? And then I started to look back at, well, what did I do for myself? And there was this whole journey when I started to realize, we talked about the old counseling model, and I started to let that go, and I started to get more involved in personal development, actually working on myself rather than being in that victim place. And so, after hundreds and hundreds of hours and many, many courses and a huge amount of work on myself, I started to develop a set of tools and processes which, rather than leaving the counseling session where I was like drained and exhausted, I felt uplifted. And that became the basis. And I started thinking, well, I'm teaching this one-on-one or 1-on-10 or even in groups of 100. How do I take this knowledge to 1-on-10,000? How can I take these tools, these things that have fundamentally changed my life, and give them to the world? And then 2 years ago, really, Belief School's been in the making for 2 years. We're about 2 weeks from launch. We've taken that learning and we've tried to create something. I truly don't think there is anything like it on the market, because it is using a digital environment, but it is creating the 3 fundamental things I think we need for change, and that is
so something
recognition,
came up for me while
accountability,
you were talking about
and
that
community.
It sounds
and we've
like you've
built
really
that
found
into the
your
whole
big
program
purpose right now and your big why,
so that
and what
is
you want to share with
really
everyone.
everything
So,
I've done is
I've
brought
been
me
working
to
on a
Belief
book,
School.
and actually right before we hopped on this call, I think I wrote like my 40,000th word for it. And finished up almost all of my first rough draft. But part of this I'm going to share with you. I had the mind map back here. And so I know you won't be able to see the whole thing, but I have kind of this. You can see it's very organized, not really. But I have this little circle here, and I'll read it out to you so you can see it.
Oh, yes.
So this circle basically is a Venn diagram. It's 4 circles, and they're all interwoven.
Yeah.
The top circle says it's something that you love. The bottom circle says it's something that you're paid for. The left circle says it's something that you are great at. And the right circle says it's something that the world needs. And so the problem is that if it's something that you love and it's something that you're great at, it's a passion. And that's great, but that's not quite your purpose. If it's something that you love and it's something the world needs, it's your mission. It's still not quite your purpose.
Beautiful.
Now, if it's something that you're good at and you're paid for it, it's a profession. And if it's something that you're paid for and it's something that the world needs, it's a vocation. And so your purpose is in the middle of all that. It's where all 4 actually intersect. So it's where it's something that you love, it's something that you're great at, it's something that you're paid for, and it's something that the world needs more of. So that's been kind of a culmination of things that I've learned, things that I've researched, and just stuff that I've found online ever since I started writing the book. So this is something that has come from...
That is fabulous. Did you create
other people
that?
have put together, but it was so important to include within this book and the story that I was telling. But it makes sense in hearing what you're talking about here and with what you're doing. And so I guess I have to say that it really sounds like you found your purpose and what you were meant to do right now from your story, from the things that you're good at, from, the difference that you want to make in the world.
Absolutely. And last Thursday I was in the last audience to ever listen to Wayne Dyer speak. He was here in New Zealand and we were there, and he was talking about what you was talking about, purpose. And he was talking about when you know you're in your purpose, you get that feeling of energy and excitement. You know, I could hear it in you then as you were reading. And it's like, whenever I talk about belief school and I talk about, I don't even get the money. I have a whole theory on money. Money turns up where value is created. I've always believed there's enough money, and it's a whole great subject to talk around beliefs on money. We can do that another time. But but he was saying, when you're in your purpose, when that is happening, you feel it, and that is the moment where you must not put the brakes on, where you must not in any way slow down. You actually put your foot down on the accelerator, and that you be brave and excited and courageous, because that is it. And he said it's and I just that day I'd been editing the last draft of the school, and I got so excited. I'd got onto Facebook and gone, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I had that physical feeling, and that's it. And then it was incredible to hear on Monday that he had passed, but it was so, I'm
okay.
certain he knew.
I actually
I'm
posted.
certain he knew. He was
I'll
talking
pull this out and
about
find it real
passing
quick. On my
the
Instagram,
whole
there
time
was
through
one
that
quote
talk.
that I really
It was just such a
pulled
great
away from
understanding
him,
of what he was
that
here
really
to
just
do.
made a
And
difference
sorry,
for
I've
me. So I'm
digressed
gonna find it real
completely.
quick.
But
He said, with everything that has happened to you, you can either feel sorry for yourself or treat what has happened as a gift. Everything is either an opportunity to grow or an obstacle to keep you from growing. You get to choose. And that was huge. And so I think that it's amazing that you got to experience him in person. I'm sure that you were very fortunate to have done that, because you're absolutely right. I remember you emailed me and said, I'm at his event right now. And then the next day or a couple days later, I saw that on the news that he had passed. So it's funny how people kind of, when they've lived such a fulfilled life, I think they can tell when their mission is complete, in a sense.
his daughter stood on stage and sang a song, "We Are Light." It was this no accompaniment, nothing. It was just absolutely beautiful. And I just thought, what an incredible gift for her to have been to sing that to her father only days before he leaves. And that's what he believed. He believed that we were all light and that we're all connected. And the more work I do in this area, the more I allow myself to feel. I was such a science, logical girl. Everything was very black and white. I was a farmer's daughter, But the more I allow myself, to just be open to this whole concept of connectivity and energy and delving into quantum physics, it just makes so much sense.
Very cool.
A couple of the books I've read this year, which have changed my world, have been all around the biology of belief and quantum physics. And really it starts to make sense of what we're trying to do. And we touch on that in belief school, because it's the things I discovered is that I had been so focused on myself, my pain, my story, the fact that I was a victim. I didn't know I didn't mean to be, but I was just consumed in this place. And when I got out of there and I actually started focusing on other people, on gratitude, on contribution, on what can I do, everything changed. It just literally started, the pain started to fall away. And I didn't need this great psychoanalysis. I just needed to be in this world and take the focus
you are
off
in life,
me.
whether it's
and,
you need
onto
money,
what can I
whether
do?
it's you need a job, whether it's whatever you need, if you're focusing on what it is that you need instead of what it is you can give to everyone else, you're going to miss out on the world providing you with what you need. Because that's just how it happens, is when it's very odd, and it sounds so weird to say it myself, only because I've experienced this. I have had, and as a freelancer, because as you might know, my full-time is I run a video production company. I have had months where I get to the next month and I'm like, I have nothing on the schedule. I have no clue where my income is going to come in from. I might as well just give up. And when I stop thinking about that, and when I start to realize, I built a successful business, I have a lot of clients and friends and family and people that care about me, I will never be stuck without a home or a roof over my head. it literally within a day, for some reason, it always comes in threes for me. I will get 3 client, whether it's email, phone calls, or referrals, that will happen the next day. And it's never because I'm asking the world for it. It's because I'm letting go of the fact that I have no control.
That is it. My blog that was just released today is called The Unbelievable Lightness of Giving. And it is exactly that moment. You must read it. It's a little short blog, and it talks about when you give expecting nothing in return, the world steps up to meet you. You access the abundance, because when you have an abundance mentality that there is enough, there is always enough. There's trillions and trillions of dollars flying around this world. It's not loyal. And all you do once you access that whole thing, then it turns up. Whereas if we have a scarcity mentality where there's not enough, we shut that all down. We don't access the abundance out there. And I talk about giving getters in my blog. People who actually give only to get, and they think they're giving, but they're actually not.
Yeah,
they're still
and
giving
I
to
would say we're
get,
both
and then they
living
don't
proof of
get
it.
to access all of that
So
abundance.
tell me, where
because
does
it's actually when you
belief
are
school
being
start?
that
What is
person.
it that people are looking
That's when,
for?
as you said,
when
it just
they
turns
will
up.
find
The
belief
world
school?
provides. It is
What
extraordinary.
Is it that belief school will help people discover? And
Yeah.
kind of how does it work? I think that one of my questions is always when someone comes to me and says, this is what worked for me. How do you show them that this can work for anybody?
Absolutely. So Belief School is part of a process. Change and personal development, as you and I both have been discussing, is a journey. And it is part of that journey. I've had so many incredible mentors and learnings and courses who have got me from where I was to where I am now. Belief School is for anyone who is wanting to create change in their life. And it is the fundamentals, it's the fundamental building blocks of those components that you need to put together to start creating and create a practice in your life. So on a practical level, it's an 8-module interactive course. It's not like anything out there in the sense that you don't just get to sit in your screen and go, okay, dum-de-doo. I mean, there's a little bit of that, and there's very little theory. You actually have to take action. And each module, as you take action, you are revealed to you. And that's where I believe the change, the belief in yourself comes from, is that as you do each module, you actually get to see your own greatness. I have to laugh, sorry, my dog is standing at the window, he's whining his little head off going, why won't you look at me? And so Belief School is that it reveals you to you, and there's no opportunity for that. We've been very clever in setting you up to succeed. So anyone who goes through the process is each little module, and it takes some courage and it takes some effort. It's not just sit there and read a book. You actually have to have some courage. But every single module, I promise, you will feel better about yourself.
It's different in that
if you complete
I'm
the
not
module.
just sitting here
So
watching
each
a
little
video.
module, you will
I'm
go.
sitting here and watching myself change over the course of
it's like
8 weeks.
Yeah, you just get to realize that you're enough. Yeah. And we've got some great little bits in there. So as you take the action, you get to discover things about yourself. And then we collate all that and we put it into a manifesto. So at the end of the program, you have this beautiful manifesto of who you are, of what you've done, and of what people think and say about you, the positive things. And that's something that you can call on in times when we go through that roller coaster of the ups and downs. Actually, gosh, I'm nervous, or I'm frightened, or I feel my relationship isn't going well. We look at that manifesto and we go, actually, I'm actually pretty cool. Look at all of this love around me. Look at all of these things I've done. It's just part of believing in yourself.
So I guess the best way to round this all out would be, I have to ask,
know how hard
you've
that
learned
is
a lot
sometimes.
over
Then
the last few
we
years,
access
and you've changed
the
a
abundance
lot.
in the world. Then we can give more. Then we can contribute more.
And so, if you could wrap everything up that and put it in a box and put some wrapping paper on it and a bow, and just hand this off to your teenage self, maybe the 11-year-old before going off to school, what would you say? Because obviously it's a lot. It could be books upon books of learning and what you've accomplished so far. But if there was like one, almost just imagine, I'm going to give you an example here. What if it were just like, the size of a postcard, and this was all you had to give as that gift? What would that say? What would it be?
Do you know, I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old boy, and so I am trying to do that right now with them, because they won't listen to all my theory. They roll their eyes. They're not old enough to read my books. They're in action. Oh, mum's on it again. So I'm trying to actually give them that thing, that one thing that doesn't matter what life throws at them, they are going to. And how I do it is I just tell them constantly that they're enough. I just tell them that they can be enough and they can do enough. And if they make a mistake, it's a mistake. It's not about them. So the behavior can be, it's actually, but who they are is perfect.
Paula, where is the best place for people to find you? Because I want to make sure that they can get into Belief School and check that out.
Well, so there's two great things happening right now. So Belief School, the product, is about 2 or 3 weeks away from going live. So you can find it www.beliefschool.com. That is my blog site, and that's where I've got lots of writing, and that's all been developed there, and the product will be launched in that site. So if your listeners and your followers subscribe there, join our mailing list, then anyone who is on that mailing list, we're going to be offering Belief School for free for the first 48 hours. And so I'm not quite sure the timing around this recording, whether that'll be too late or not, or you can find me on Facebook. So Paula Gosney, Belief School. Those are the two best, and jump on and interact. And I'd love to, I love hearing people's stories and connecting. So yeah.
This episode of The Year of Purpose is brought to you by our brand new book, Life Rescripted. Find your purpose and design your dream life before the curtains close. If you want to be the first in line to receive a free digital copy from me, all you have to do is head on over to www.liferescriptedbook.com to find out more. I've discovered what I think is the world's most effective process to design your path in life. It'd be a shame if I didn't share it. In Life Rescripted, you will discover the #1 strategy for determining your life purpose and how you can start a new path today, the 5X life hack rule for accomplishing your dreams and designing your life on your own terms 5 times faster, the ultimate solution for fear and how you can leverage it right now to make this year your best year yet, and so much more. Reserve your spot in line to get a free copy at www.liferescriptedbook.com, and I will see you in the next episode.